We are live. We
I
are
think
live. And we are alive. We are
We're
alive.
Very cool.
alive and we're live.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the live show. I am Bruce Gibson. And of course, Brandi Jackola is here, or Jackola, whatever pronunciation we're going to go with tonight. I'll go with Jackola tonight. And so I also want to mention that we have Dan Gunther here from Literary Treks and here on the Kertrax Network. So
hi, happy to be here on my channel hosting you guys. So word to everyone out there, I'm probably saying this about 5 or 6 seconds after those guys talk. My internet is being really squirrely right now, but I'm here.
So just to repeat what Dan said, his internet is squirrely right now. So I will help with this. Oh, I love how we have the Brady Bunch effect here going. He just looked up at me, and I'll look down, and I'm like, "Hey, Dan, how we go?"
I'm looking the wrong direction.
Oh, here we go.
That way,
hi.
and that way.
Hi. Oh yeah. Oh wait. Yeah. Hi. I'm so confused. Okay. So here's the deal. We're just going to address this up front. Oh, and by the way, hi everyone in the chat. So
hi,
glad
chat.
That you're joining us. This is so awesome.
So many people. Thank you.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes. We are glad that you're joining us because we thought, well, if we do this and no one shows up. Here's the thing. So there's two kind of things going on here. Dan, this is his YouTube channel. And of course, anybody who watches Dan's videos here on YouTube is familiar with him and may not be familiar with me and Brandi. Some are, some aren't. Brandi and I do a live show on the Trek FM network called Live from the Edge about Discovery episodes or short treks that deal with Discovery. Well, Trek FM is not doing a live show for Star Trek Picard. And so because Dan and I co-host Literary Treks and Brandi and I do the live show, the three of us got together and said, why don't we continue doing a live show for Picard here on Dan's YouTube channel? So that's what we're going. It's like two worlds combined here. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing. So, because we want to talk about Children of Mars.
Yeah.
So,
which sounds like a Doctor Who episode.
It does, doesn't it? It really does sound like Doctor Who.
It does.
Oh, good Doctor
Who. My husband brought that up first, and then I said, because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, this is familiar to me for some reason. Oh, it sounds like a Doctor Who episode.
There'll be times I'll pause.
I hadn't thought of that.
They're like that. I'm going to pause sometimes to give Dan 5 seconds to respond with his delay.
Yes. Good plan.
I'm here. I'm just a little slow.
He's just a little slow. So I'm going to throw the question out to Dan about what was your first impression of this episode of Short Treks?
It's very different from the ones we've gotten before. One thing that I found really interesting was that there's very little dialogue in it, and it's all just kind of set to the song. I think one of the first times we get is the term non-diegetic lyrical music in Star Trek. I'm not sure if that's the right term, but it was interesting, and it was very, very different from the style of Star Trek and even Short Treks. So I think it was an interesting little peek into the world that we're going to see in Star Trek Picard. And it was not at all, but I did really enjoy it.
Great. Brandi, what are your thoughts?
Well, I saw it like 10 minutes after I got home from being on a plane all day. And I wasn't completely present the first time that I watched it. I will admit that, but it broke my heart. But the second time I watched it, there's already someone in the chat wondering if I cried. Oh, Lord, yes, I cried. A lot. A lot. A lot. A lot. Yeah, there was tissue involved.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just eyes watering a little. There was tissue, guys.
Speaking for myself too, as a teacher really hit me because you see these rivalries emerge between kids. So even at the beginning, before the tragedy really strikes, just the kind of rivalry between two girls and how much that can mean to a young person and how impactful that is on their life. That was getting me right at the very beginning because, I see that sort of thing all the time.
I have my own personal thoughts on that, but I'm not going to share those yet because Bruce, what did you think?
Well, I watched it first. I got up Thursday morning. I was in my hotel room in Las Vegas, and after about 15 minutes, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing? The Short Treks is out now. The Short Treks is out now." So, I was. I guess it was somewhat what I was kind of expecting, but better. It's like I knew that this was not necessarily going to be a total prequel link to Picard in the sense that it wasn't a Picard short, but there was going to be elements of it that would link towards Star Trek Picard. I watched it twice, once and then immediately again right afterwards. And then I watched it just briefly now before with my wife. It was her first time, and I was getting more choked up the third time. So it's like I'm connecting more with it because I guess I kind of knew, I know what's expected, and now I'm connected to these characters more, that I felt more of an emotional connection to it. But I thought it was really good.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm really interested to see it again. I watched it the one time, so I definitely do it again and see how it affects me now that I know, where it's going and the story it's trying to tell.
I'm looking at the chat. Brian Malash says he's watched it 14 times.
Wow.
That's
wow.
And cried every single time.
Oh, I watched it before we started,
wow.
and I thought I'm just going to watch it this once and be ready for it. And then that was when it really hit me, like really hit me hard. So it was. I just thought, I should have done this earlier in the day. I should have gotten a third watch in there just to see if it had the same effect, which I figured that it probably would, because it actually reminded me of some things that happened in my own childhood and feelings that I had during those times. So, yeah, it hit me on multiple levels.
Yeah, let's go ahead and touch on that here. But before we do that, just because the chat has mentioned it, we've mentioned the song. This is a recording that Peter Gabriel released. I don't know when it was, but years ago, whatever. But it's one of his recordings called Heroes, which I thought was interesting because I never saw that mentioned in the credits. They never gave a credit to him or the song, which I thought was really odd. So
that is odd because
interesting, yeah.
I don't know.
You think they'd have to?
You would think that they would have to. Maybe Peter Gabriel didn't want them to. I don't know. It's just kind of strange to me because I was listening to it. I was like, because I'm not familiar with all of his songs, but I was like, oh, it sounds like Peter Gabriel. And then when the credits rolled, it just said music by Jeff Russo, and then it said like Alex Courage, did the original theme. I'm like, the original theme wasn't even in this one. I'm just like, but the main song in this episode wasn't even in the credits. And I watched the credits more than once, so I know it's not there. So it's kind of strange, but who knows? I'm looking in the chat. Atong says that it was also covered by David Bowie. Yeah, well, David Bowie did that song originally. It was a cover.
I think it's originally a Bowie song, yeah. Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Which you all seconds before I said it. So cool.
No, it actually, I know it's a Bowie original because I have the album that it's on.
Oh, great. Why don't you go get it and play it for us right now? Because I'd like to hear that version right now. Go, Brandi. You have a record player for it? I'm guessing it's vinyl?
It's not vinyl. I do have
also,
some vinyl.
As someone who's dealt with this before, that will mean that this video will not be able to be played on YouTube, probably. So maybe not the best idea.
That's true.
I could play 30 seconds of it.
No.
And that's fair use.
No.
Less than 30 seconds is fair use.
I almost want to take this episode of Short Treks and edit the Bowie version in just to see how that plays.
It's very different. I don't think it would work.
Yeah.
So that's just my personal feeling.
Okay, so I see. What's this in the chat? This
I'd
is
still
the
like to
second
see it.
time. This is the second time a Bowie song has been used in Star Trek in the last year. Wait, what was the first one? Well, wait,
That's true. Yeah.
Space Oddity. Space
Tilly
Oddity.
sang
Tilly.
Space Oddity when they were drilling into her head.
Yeah.
That's right. Interesting. See, I love doing this stuff. I learn things.
Right.
I learn things because most time I see stuff on YouTube, I don't necessarily learn anything except somebody complaining. That's usually like a lot of the YouTube stuff I see. Not Dan, of course. He's always like positive.
And that's why we love Dan.
That's why we love Dan, because he's positive.
Yay. Aw. Well, thank
Which
you.
I'm going to go ahead and
That's
and
why
do
I like
this.
doing this stuff with you guys, because you're in the same mindset.
Well, and that's I'm going to use this opportunity right now to make the announcement that Dan and I are producing and releasing a new Star Trek podcast coming out very soon called Positively Trek. And it's, it's us talking about Star Trek, but we always have the positive attitude. It's our positive thoughts about the series, the movies, the books, the comics, fandom. We'll even talk about other podcasts. We'll have guests on, like Brandi. I'm sure she will pop up fairly often.
As often as you'll have me.
Absolutely.
And yes, Brian, the Trek guys are besides themselves. I did see some of that earlier. About this episode, not about our podcast. But yeah, Positively Trek is coming. We have a YouTube handle at Positively Trek. I think we only have like 3 followers at this point because we haven't announced anything, and there isn't really anything there. But if you want to start following us on Twitter, then you'll find out when the new episodes come out. Now, just so you don't freak out, anybody who listens to Literary Treks, don't go, oh my gosh, they're leaving Trek FM and Literary Treks. No, we're still doing Literary Treks. This is just added to it. The shows will actually complement each other.
Absolutely.
Because not everybody reads the books, so you can listen to us talk about other things like Picard or whatever, and then go to Literary Treks and listen to us talk about book. And we're going to be interviewing Una McCormick about her latest Picard novel and all that kind of stuff. Brandi's excited.
I love Una McCormick.
Yeah, definitely.
So
we're actually reading another of her novels, an earlier novel right now, Hollow Men, for Literary Treks. So we're getting lots of Una McCormick, which I'm excited about.
Yes, that's one of her Deep Space Nine novels. Yes.
Nice.
So yeah, like I said, that podcast will be coming out very soon, hopefully in the next couple weeks. Is there anything else, Dan, talk about it? Is there anything you want to add to that before we move on?
Just check us out on Twitter. Like Bruce said, there's nothing on there yet. It's at announcements there as to when you can find the podcast. Instagram that I've not done anything with. We've got a Facebook group we haven't done anything with yet, but we're getting everything put into place, and a couple weeks we can get this on the go, and I'm really excited for it. So I love talking about Trek with Bruce, and we wanted to kind of branch out and do more than just the novels, but like he said as well, we'll still be doing the novels on Literary Treks as well. So lots of cool stuff coming for sure.
Yes, and my original thing was what? Oh, you did it. See, we got another follower. My original thought was, well, like, what? We need another Star Trek podcast out there, but hey, yeah, because we're going to do some things that are different. We're not even announcing that yet. Just you have to tune in. But we don't want to make this a big plug. We just want to get that out there. So we won't go back to this episode of Children of Mars. And Brandi, I want to touch upon what you were just saying about the bullying or the picking in school and things. So, give us your, because I think actually all 3 of us probably have something we can relate to in this. I'm just assuming, but there's high school, middle school, elementary school, all those aren't easy times for all of us. So Brandi, tell us what you were thinking about when you saw the bullying and the fighting going on in this episode.
Yeah, well, the thing that I noticed first was that neither girl seems to have friends. And the thought in my mind is you guys are more alike than different. And yet you have they both have some rage. That's the best way to say it. I don't want to say it's like mindless rage or something like that, but they're both in difficult family situations and living situations because they're apart from their families. And so that's very isolating. And you see them, you see especially Lil, she's sitting, and Kima has been late to class because Lil knocked off her backpack, and while she was picking it up, the barrier for the shuttle came down, and so she was late to class. And but you see Lil sitting by herself. She's looking around and watching everybody else laughing and talking and interacting, and no one is doing that with her. And you see Kima being alone too. And so they've both got stuff going on. And when you feel that way, when you feel isolated, it's difficult to find an outlet for the anger that you feel. And they found that outlet in each other, unfortunately, which was disheartening because I know what that feels like. Because when the other person that gets picked on is the one that starts bullying you too, you're just like, okay, now everyone truly is against me. And I have been in that place, and it is not a good feeling. And you think of these things in your brain, personally, is just like how you'd like to just punch that person in the throat one of these days. Just show them what for. It doesn't help anything. And I never actually did anything like that, but I fantasized about it. I fantasized about beating up those bullies, but I knew that I never would do that because what would it solve? Nothing. Would solve nothing. It would get me in trouble. It would just make things worse more than anything else. But it hurt me that both of them were in that place, and neither of them could recognize that they were stronger together than at odds with each other until the very end. So again, more alike than not. But sometimes it's very difficult to see that when you're so wrapped up in your own stuff.
I was starting to wonder if they were friends before this, like prior to this episode. If I'm not close friends, but they kind of know each other and they're acquaintances, but maybe they had a recent falling out or something, because they've, they're kind of targeted each other. And why and the only way I think they would know that is if they know that they are similar in a lot of ways, that they had some connection at some point, and some rift had been created in the meantime, and then it just got worse as they were isolated, not just from others in their family, but from themselves, from each other as friends.
I don't know.
I definitely had that.
I didn't get that feeling.
As they come together. Just because, they realize that they have that in common together, and they both kind of reach out to comfort each other. So that's when that entered my mind, that like, oh, maybe they had been closer, maybe not best friends or anything like that before, but maybe there was some kind of connection before that had been, sundered at something.
Yeah, I never got the feeling that they were ever friends. They obviously knew each other. They were in the same class. They were seated, next to each other. So they had an acquaintance, but I never got the feeling that they ever were the kind of people that hung out together.
That was my original assumption when I watched it. I thought that Lil running into Kima before getting on the shuttlecraft, when she bumped into her, I thought maybe that was an accident because she wasn't paying attention.
Oh, I didn't think that at all.
That's what I thought the first time. But by the time we got in the classroom and she drew the picture of Mrs. K and everything, then I'm like, okay, now, no, I think this was intentional. So it's like, why did she zero in on Kima? Unless there was some history of something there. And Brandi, of course, you've done improv, and I had a teacher in improv. I don't know if anybody's ever relayed this to you about doing improv, but he always said to do a scene is more powerful if you start the scene with two characters that have a history.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You need a relationship to make an improv scene work. If they're two strangers, nobody cares.
Right.
But if you show that you have a history, two characters can be talking and one character says one thing and the other character says, you always do this. Now you know that there's something going on, that they've known each other for a long time and somebody's got a problem. And now it's time to exacerbate that problem, because that's what you do in improv. If I say, I'm going to take a nap, could you please not play the music very loud? Then that other person's cue is to play music as loud as possible.
Yes. And if I was your scene partner, I would do that. And then you'd say, like,
Exactly.
stop playing the music loud. And then I would say something like, well, it never bothered you before.
Exactly.
That's
So,
we got the history. Oh, I've
you
done this
establish a
before.
history.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Well, the thing is I knew it wasn't an accident when Lil hit Kima, because if it had been an accident, she would have looked back and possibly stopped and said, oh, I'm sorry. That's what you do when you accidentally run into someone.
Well,
no, she
everyone.
meant to do it. Well, okay, granted.
Yeah, there was intention there,
But
for sure.
there was intention there. And I feel like maybe it's not necessarily because they had a friendship, but maybe it was because I don't know, they were both the odd duck and they couldn't target the popular kids, and so they targeted each other.
Yeah.
So it had always been a rivalry. So that's what it felt like to me.
And that's definitely, yeah. And like I said, as a teacher, that's definitely something that I've seen before. It's something that I've experienced even, let's be frank, we're all Star Trek fans, probably bullied at some point in our school careers. It's something that we're familiar with for sure. And I've seen a lot of, definitely.
Well, Dan, you have a unique perspective of this because, yes, you were a student in school and you're indicating that you've had some bullying in your past and now you've witnessed it as being a teacher from that aspect. And so when you're seeing this in this episode of these two girls, why do you think they took it out on each other from your perspective of what you've seen as a teacher?
I think definitely Brandi's kind of on the right track there. I think these are two people that, like she said, have more in common than they have differences. And you see that kind of rivalry show itself with people like that, that find themselves kind of on the bottom rung. And, there's really no outlet to take that out except on people that you can maybe maneuver into a position to be less than you. And that kind of thing. And it's unfortunate. It's a human nature thing that it's really tough to kind of fight against. And, a lot of the things in this episode really resonated with me when the teacher sees the picture and misunderstands what was going on. I've been that teacher that totally misread a situation. And, there was way more going on than I thought. And then, oh man, I kind of stuck my foot in it and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, whoever the writers of this episode, and there are a few, Kirsten Beyer and Alex Kurtzman and Jenny Lumet. I can't remember who the third writer was, but they definitely have some experience in this as well, because it just felt so real.
Well, as we're talking about bullying and then this fighting in this situation, we're saying, a lot of it has to do with they have a lot more in common than they probably even realize. But not all bullying occurs because of two people have a lot in common, or do they? Is that kind of what we're concluding, that the bully has issues and the bully takes it out on probably the person that's either more in common with, or that they see something that of themselves in, or they see a weakness in that person that they just go after that person because they're different?
I don't think there's one pat answer to that question. I think that people who bully obviously have something going on with themselves. They have some kind of issue that they don't want to face, or that they have trouble facing. A lot of times it's problems in their family life or something else of that nature, something of a more personal nature. And so they find an outlet for all of that anger and frustration by bullying other people. And I don't think that means that there's necessarily anything wrong with the people that they are bullying. They just find a target. and they find the most convenient target. So, oh, here's somebody who is a little bit different than the rest of everyone. I'm going to go for that.
Okay, so let's go with that now for a second, because we really don't know the history of these characters. Is Lil just a bully? And this day she picked Kima because she's different. Because if you notice, almost all the students we saw in this situation are human, and Kima's not.
No, there were kids in the class who were not human.
But not many is what my point. Like, did she go after Kima because she wasn't human? And that was the difference that she was picking on her for that day.
It's possible, but I feel like there's more of a history of the rivalry between those two than just what we saw in this episode. That maybe that it escalated this day, that both of them had just had it, and that's why it escalated. We saw the end of the story instead of the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there's definitely a history here, and it could be for that reason, but I think there's actual events, or, kind of a back and forth. One has had the upper hand one day, the other's had the upper hand another day, and this is just kind of, like you said, we just see a snapshot of this life and the end of the story rather than the entire relationship between these two.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's pretty much the perception I walked away with, is that they have some kind of history, and like I mentioned at the beginning, maybe they were friends and they had a rift or something going on between them, or whatever. But, them coming together at the end is very touching. And if anything, that really moved me too, because, and I've seen a lot of people talk about this online, the parallels to 9/11. When 9/11 occurred, I was at a convention center. I was out of town attending a conference, and I'm in a big open space, just like Kima and Lil were in, with all these screens above, and all of a sudden we're just this crowd of people looking at these different screens. And what I saw in this episode reminded me so much of that experience of just going, what is going on? I'm looking at different screens, and I even remember seeing a ticker on CNN of Somerset County, Pennsylvania, and that's where I had relatives. As a matter of fact, that flight crashed behind my grandmother's property, which I found out later that day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's a whole nother story. I can tell that some other time.
Excuse me.
But yeah, that really hit me, just seeing that, because of the, them looking at those monitors all around. Was a very similar situation I was in during 9/11.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of those monitors, I wanted to bring something up that I have seen a couple articles mention, and I guess kind of maybe warning for Star Trek Picard spoilers. Did you guys notice when the screen shows, Admiral Picard's statement, and it has on the bottom, he's shocked and appalled or something like that, there's a ticker at the top of the screen. Did anybody catch what that said?
No, I didn't have time to pause it so that it was legible.
I was going to try to do that before this, and I didn't get a chance to. So what did it say? Spoiler alert, but yes.
Okay, so it says rogue synths attack Mars.
So I did notice
really
that. I did notice that on one of the other screens on the bottom ticker before the Picard screen. So that was used there. So yeah, let's talk about the rogue synth. I can't talk. By the way, Dan, your video, you're not delayed anymore.
Yeah, I'm noticing. You guys are responding in real time, so I'm very excited.
Yeah.
So rogue synths, synthetic people, robots.
That's what it seems like. Yeah. And we know from some of the trailers we've seen like this closet full of data-ish androids with, I think one has F8 on the forehead, and we know Dr. Girardi is a specialist in androids and artificial life forms, Alison Pill's character. So I wonder if synthetic life forms are going to play a bigger role than we've realized in the trailers. I don't know.
I think so, because if you have synthetic life forms as one of the storylines in Picard, it would make sense that Picard is looking back at data in whatever capacity, whether he's on a holodeck or dreams or whatever, that, that's what he relates to with and then the Borg, in a sense,
Mhm.
are
Absolutely.
synthetic. So you take those three elements, Data, Borg, and androids of synthetic people or whatever. If you have an issue with one, you're probably going to look and relate to the others. Maybe Hugh and 7 and 9 are helping with that issue because they can relate to it.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, the other side of that you could think of is, like you've said, Hugh is going to be in the story, and we know that he's kind of a former Borg who's gained his individuality. So rogue synths could refer to maybe his faction, but synths seems like a bit of a stretch for ex-Borg. It feels more like artificial creation. So I lean more towards the android angle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
what do you think, Brandi?
Well, the thing is, Borg were not always synthetic life forms, and they are not completely synthetic. They are cyborgs. They are organic and technology. So to me, that doesn't seem like the right connection.
Right.
But androids and synths, very similar in that regard. So I think that would probably be the connection that they're going to make. But, I don't have really that many theories for Picard because there's still so little known. And that's fine because it's less than 2 weeks. And then we're going to have that first episode. And I'm ready.
I'm so excited. I don't care who knows it.
Yeah, it's funny because the word synth means something completely different to me because of video games. Because there's okay, I like video games. Everybody knows that. There's one that I play many, many times because it's a different experience every time because the world is just so vast, and that's Fallout 4. It's basically an alternate history where people never got out of that 50s aesthetic, but they still had things like nuclear cars and things like that. And then in the year 2077, China basically launches a bunch of nuclear weapons and destroys the world. And in Fallout 4, there is a group that basically went underground before this happened. And they had been part of the Commonwealth Institute of Technology in the Boston area of Massachusetts, which they really love to base all of these things on real places and build the buildings that were there. So it's like, oh, here's Bunker Hill. All right. And, things like that. It's fun. But these people decided to start working on synthetics in order to have a workforce to help them do the mundane things while they were using their big brains to do other things. And these synths became more and more advanced to the point where they could become indistinguishable from humans. And so now everybody on the surface is paranoid that synths are replacing them. Spoiler alert, they are. And so it's actually it's part of the main quest and is a very interesting storyline because they started out as just like your basic robot type thing and became more and more lifelike to the point where they could look like humans. The interesting thing is that these synths started becoming self-aware and wanted to just live as people, but were not being allowed to do that. And when someone found out that a synth was having these kind of thoughts, their memory was erased and they were, basically reset to factory defaults, thereby erasing all of their experiences. And basically it was like killing that person. So a lot of interesting politics going on there.
That sounds like it could be Picard.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, like, hey. I think back to Picard and Guinan's discussion in Measure of a Man, right? When Picard says, thousands of disposable people, this is the potential that Bruce Maddox has to create, from data. So maybe in the 20 years since Nemesis, that has happened. And this is the rebellion or the pushback. Now, I don't want to turn this totally into a Picard speculation broadcast, but we have that mysterious woman from the trailer, and Picard says something like, if this woman is who I think she is, blah, 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 blah. And could she be a synthetic or something like that? That, like you said, is becoming indistinguishable from humans. Interesting. Anyway,
Mhm.
that's just where my brain went when you were talking about the Fallout 4 storyline. So
Well, yeah, and now
interesting.
that I know that crawl said synths, I'm like, ooh, that could be interesting.
See, now I'm even more excited. This is like really great because all I've been thinking about is, wow, we're getting new Picard series, and we're going to catch up on what Picard's been doing and what's going on with 7 of 9, and something about the Borg, and this girl shows up and his new little crew he's got going, and now this whole other thing. I'm just like, this would be really great. Brian in the chat has a theory, but he won't share it with us. We have to listen to his Star Trek Picard cast. Oh, what a tease.
That's fair. That's fair.
I guess we can all pimp Star Trek podcasts in this episode, right?
You
Oh,
can.
absolutely.
The more the merrier. Absolutely.
And that we're going to do that in the new podcast, Positively Track. If we hear something on another podcast, we're going to talk about it. I mean, it's like whatever, if it's Star Trek,
Definitely.
we're going to call everybody out if it's good, and if it's bad, we'll be positive and say it's bad.
It's positively bad.
It's positive.
But
No.
I don't think that you're gonna have to say that. So
No.
No.
But
definitely
yeah,
not.
I will listen to Brian's podcast because I want to know his theory now. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check
tease
that
there.
out. Adding that to my list.
I saw earlier everybody was going on about the Trek Yard guys. I didn't see what they did today because I know they were going to release something today, but I know Captain Foley was not happy when I watched him like yesterday or whatever. He was just doing a lot of hemming and hawing and not happy. But so I kind of want to touch on this too because earlier in this episode when we were seriously talking about kids fighting and bullying, the chat was going on about the ships. So,
yes, I've seen that come up a lot.
there was a little bit going on about what we were talking about, but most of it was about ships.
Yeah, so I know that's a big topic because, like I said, the chat was going on about it for a while. What's going on with the ships? I don't understand why we see. This is my Jerry Seinfeld. Why we see 23rd century ships in the 21st century? Dan, I want to know your take on this because you're a ship guy.
Yeah, I am a ship guy. I love
he
the
watches
tech.
all kinds of movies and ships people all the time.
yeah, totally. That's what you meant. No, but yeah, I love the tech. I did notice that absolutely. You've got, I think it's a McGee class, whatever the USS Shran is in Discovery. You see that in the dry dock at Utopia Planitia. A couple other ships behind it that I couldn't really identify, but again, I just watched it the one time. I didn't pause, and so I wasn't sure. But it bugs me a little bit, but I kind of factor in a few things. One, this is a short trek where they do, you see there's places where they're saving money and reusing assets and that sort of thing. So that's A. And B, we've seen this in Star Trek before. Like, how many Excelsior class ships do you see in the Next Generation? Or Oberth class ships, which are supposedly even older, Yeah. So the wreckage of Wolf
Saratoga that Siska was on in the very first episode of DS9 is an old 23rd century ship. Yeah.
The old Miranda class, the wreckage at Wolf 359, there's actually a Constitution class ship. There's like parts of the wrecked Enterprise from Star Trek 3 in there. I mean, Starfleet has used old ships for such a long time. And, it does irk me a little bit because I'm like, the geek in me really wants to be like, ooh, what are those ships looking like right now? I want to see the brand new ships and stuff. So I was disappointed in that we didn't get a new thing that I could drool over and try and draw and figure out. So that's the part that
we didn't see any 24th century looking ships in this, right?
Exactly. Yeah. None that I saw. Which again, just makes my geek heart a little bit.
I mean,
sad.
it is a little disappointing because this is the first live action Star Trek that we've gotten since 2003, back in the 24th century, and we're seeing 23rd century ships. That is a bit disappointing.
It is a little bit.
At the same time, I'm thinking, like you're saying, it's a short text. I'm thinking, also, are they kind of saving that for Picard?
That's my thought too, is those kind of reveals are things that they might be wanting to save for, this millions of dollars they've poured into this new show that's going to be, taking CBS All Access to new and greater heights. And, you want to save some of those reveals. This is just a tease. This is just to kind of get us excited, right? So I kind of lessen the importance of those kinds of things in my head because of that. As much as I like the short, it was really good. But as a line item on CBS's ledger of what they're going to spend money on and really invest in, I don't think it's, up at the level of an episode of Picard.
Yes. Well, and Brandi, don't you think that we're jumping the gun just from a short treks? I mean, we really need to see what we see in Picard to make a final conclusion of what ships are going to be like at this time frame.
Yep.
Brandy's busy shipping right now.
no, I'm not. The way I'm thinking about it is, if a ship still works, you're not going to just throw it away. So I didn't have a problem with seeing older ships. It didn't bother me in any way because I thought, why would you just toss something aside if it's still operational? That's just wasteful. And I would hope at this point in time that they've figured out how to not waste so much.
Mm-hmm.
But, that was just, it didn't really occur to me at the time. I'm just like, oh, I recognize that ship. That's class of ship, it didn't, other than that, I was like, it's ships.
Right.
So it didn't bother me.
It didn't bother me until everybody was complaining online. Not everybody complaining, but people were
This is why I have not been online for a week. So
that, I mean, in a lot of cases, is the best decision.
Yeah, I was busy for most of that because I was on a work trip. But even so, when I came home, I'm just like, nah, I'm fine not being on social media right now. So I just don't care. I'm tired of people flying off the handle about every little thing. I mean, if you're upset about it, fine, but I don't need to hear about it because I don't care if you're upset. I'm going to have my own reaction to this thing, and it is not going to be affected by anyone else.
What I find funny about this, though, is I remember years ago seeing people online getting in this debate about how ships getting retired, like, in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, there's not going to be any refit. The Enterprise is 20, even though it was more like 40 years old. It's seen its day, and then the Enterprise A was retired after like 7 or 8 years or whatever. It was like, we're moving forward with a new generation of ships. And it's also been suggested that the NX-01 was retired. It's too old and we're done with that class of ships. And I remember people arguing, well, that's ridiculous. Look at ships, naval vessels. You can look at a naval vessel from 100 years ago. They pretty much look the same. I mean, I'm sure there's been upgrades and refits, of course, but a lot of these ships serve for 40, 50 years, and they're constantly being upgraded. So it's not unusual to have a ship that's going to be around for a long period of time. It's always being upgraded.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like we see in Star Trek, ships getting refits and that sort of thing. Like the entire inside of that ship could have been completely gutted, and if you walk inside, it looks like a brand new, 24th, 25th century ship. It's just got that old skin on it, like the Miranda class ships that we saw in Deep Space Nine, Emissary, like the Saratoga you mentioned, for example. You walk on the bridge of that, it looks like a 24th century ship. It's just the outside has the old, Miranda class look to it. Yeah, they know what they're doing. They got good ship people.
They get good ship people.
Good ship people, yeah.
Now,
I believe that's Utopia Planetia's motto. Like Utopia Planitia, we're good ship people. Good ship
people.
Yeah.
I thought it was ship.
Ship me.
Well, I think there'll be a really big problem if we see these ships in the 3rd season of Discovery, which is like, almost 900.
This ship is 1,000 years old.
Yeah, okay. I would definitely have an issue with it in that case. Yeah. See the Shenzhou flying around in the background. Like,
yeah.
Well, SC in the chat says about designs mature, the look the same outwardly, just internals get updated. And I was just thinking of myself, and I thought, I mean, I guess I could always update my internal organs to live longer, but I'd sure like to update the outward ones too. But anyway,
that's fair.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm growing my hair out. Just so you
Nice.
know.
I'm growing mine out too into this.
Yes, because you announced this like it's been a few months. Like
Yeah.
maybe 3 months ago, you're like, I'm letting the color grow out.
Oh,
and now, yeah.
It was way more than 3 months ago,
Isn't
sweetie.
how long ago was it? It doesn't feel that long ago.
It was about 8 months.
Mhm.
Oh no, you're right. Because it was when we were doing second season of
Mhm.
Discovery.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, you know, that hair could probably last 100 years.
I'm sure that it could if I lived that long. Actually, it could live without me, probably.
Hmm.
It wouldn't continue to grow, but it could still exist.
Well, it looks great.
Definitely.
Oh, thanks.
Mm. Let's
It's
talk
all
about hair.
natural. I know, my hair. Sorry.
Let's talk about hair.
My hair.
My hair.
No, specifically my hair.
Dan, when's the last time you had a haircut?
2 or 3 weeks ago, I guess.
Where do you get your hair done, Dan? Where do you go to a barber shop, or you go to some like where do you go? Is it like a chain place with coupons?
It's a chain place. I cheap out.
That's what I do too.
No.
I know. I have a stylist, you guys. Like,
Wow.
because like this is not easy. No, seriously, my hair is trouble. So it pays to have someone who understands your hair and can actually give you a haircut and a style that doesn't make you look like a complete moron. So yeah. Thanks, Darcy.
One of many things that Admiral Picard no longer has to worry about.
Oh,
yeah,
that's true.
And hasn't for many years. Good for him.
Mhm.
I think he needs to worry about the eyebrows. They're getting a little long, in my opinion.
Oh, whatever.
Just I worked with a guy who had he was an older gentleman and his eyebrows were so long. It used to freak us out. We used to say somebody needs to tell him to just clip them because they were just so they almost looked like Vulcan eyebrows, but it wasn't because the eyebrows went up. It was just because they grew so long that they looked like they're going up. It was kind of scary. And it just occurred to me because I looked at my notes. Let's go back to ships again because I haven't heard anybody talking about this online. I'm sure it's out there, but I haven't seen anything. That shuttlecraft. I mean, that to me looked old too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the Discovery style shuttlecraft with the kind of school shuttle livery put on it, basically.
But it looked dirty.
Yeah, it looked old, which I don't know what school buses are like where you live, but they always look pretty old around here. So
same. I have never seen a new school bus in my life.
Mm-hmm. So that to me struck me as pretty realistic, I think. Actually, what we should talk about, I think, is how much this is kind of added to Star Trek canon, because I think this is the first time we've seen school children in Star Trek other than the occasional classroom on the Enterprise D or something like that.
Yes.
Right? This is kind of a really cool glimpse into civilian life in the Star Trek universe, which we've had very little of, really.
That's a good point. Also, I was wondering, is this a Starfleet school or a Federation school? I mean,
I would say it's a Federation school.
That uses a Starfleet shuttlecraft. A retired, maybe a retired one, right?
Surplus old shuttlecraft, yeah.
Yeah, well, Beta Artemis just said it's a school shuttle, probably a hand-me-down. So, yeah.
Exactly. It would have been really cool if it was like a TOS style shuttlecraft, those big boxy ones.
Yes.
That would have been great.
Nice. Yes.
That's a good point. Wait, what was I gonna say? Okay, just another quick thing. It was also for Happy First Contact Day.
Yes, I saw that.
What'd you think of that? Why did they choose that date? Why are they in school? Shouldn't that be like a federal holiday of some type?
Well, I wonder.
No, I think it's like one of those working holidays, kind of like Veterans Day or something like that.
Could be. I think now this is, nerd hat or whatever. I think in Voyager they said something like, "Oh, all it meant to me was a day off from school" or something like that. So
that's right.
Technically. But it could have been the Thursday before, right? Maybe it was the Friday. The Friday was the day off in lieu or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I think you can work around that easily enough.
Yeah, that's true. Because when holidays are coming up, the school will decorate or whatever before, It's not like just on Halloween. That's when they put the Halloween decorations up.
Well, and honestly,
or this is a really strict school.
And honestly, that's not going to be a holiday everywhere, because First Contact Day is for the Vulcans and the Earthlings, and that's it. So it's not a cultural thing for everybody else. It's basically just for Earth.
That's true. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Wouldn't it make sense that Keiko be there teaching at the school?
No, she's busy being in Mulan, so sorry.
Just as an aside, I like one of the things that always bugged me, like especially after having gone to school to become a teacher and all this stuff, is I think Keiko made a great teacher. I think she was a good teacher, but the episode where she becomes a teacher, she's talking to Cisco. She's like, "I've never really thought about it before, but teaching is something I'd really like to try." And I'm just like, oh my God. It's that easy? Really?
Well,
and then
maybe
the next day she comes in,
future,
I would like to try to be a captain. It's something I never thought of. Could I do that today?
Exactly.
Well, I think it's like this. We have to remember that these people are in the future, and they have their needs provided for. They don't have to worry about paying for all of this tuition and having school loans for the rest of their lives and all of these things. And so they can focus on more than one thing throughout their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that is something that today I'm just gonna start, working in stellar cartography. But there's some knowledge that comes with that. But when it comes to being, in the future, I think that you have a lot more options open to you, because you don't have all of these other real life things that we have to deal with in order to have a career.
Yeah. Gosh, I wish I lived there. Oh man.
Right.
Yeah, no student loans. I like that, since I'm getting ready to put 2 daughters in college. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Student loans are from hell. They are wrong on so many levels.
Now
you shouldn't have to spend the rest of your life paying for your education. That's just not okay.
Absolutely.
Just to go off on a little quick side tangent here. My youngest daughter wants to do something, go to a school that would be very expensive. My oldest is starting college next year. Fine, scholarships, whatever. I'm like, we got it covered. She won't have to have student loans. But my youngest, because it's so expensive, I'm going to have to tell her, you will have to have student loans on this one. And I don't want her to pay student loans when she's older, but I was trying to avoid that. But she wants, I don't know. I'm hoping that changes. I mean, her mind changes where she goes to school. Anyway, I just had to get that out. Cleanse. Okay. Got my smart water now. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Inhale and exhale and inhale and exhale. Yeah.
Yeah. See, in the chat, there was confusion. Who was it that said Avenue Pad says confused if the girls were on Mars or on Earth? But yeah, they're on.
Oh,
Earth.
They were not on Mars.
Yeah,
they would be dead. If they were on Mars, they probably would be dead.
Well, I don't know. Not everybody on Mars may have died, and not all of Mars may have been attacked. A
great deal of it from the wide shot, a heck of a lot of it was being attacked.
Yeah,
and a space station was destroyed. And I'm pretty sure I knew that I didn't think that they were on Mars, because with Lil's father, I can't come home this year.
Right.
Yeah.
So I knew that they were not on Mars.
Well, and Beta Artemis says that you can see San Francisco out the girls' room windows too. So.
I missed that. Okay, cool.
I did too. So thanks, Beta Artemis.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, it's been
everything's
an
in
hour.
San Francisco, man.
It is. Yeah, exactly.
It's a great place.
Now it makes me wonder if the school is more Starfleet than just Federation. Because it's in San Francisco. It's either San Francisco or Paris. You know.
Well, something
might
doesn't
be a
have-
lot of Starfleet brats there, kind of thing. But
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Just because there might be kids there who have parents in Starfleet doesn't mean it's a Starfleet school.
That's
it's just,
true.
You know, they don't have to
It could
necessarily
be-
be affiliated with Starfleet.
It could be it could be a private school that
Mhm.
a lot, and in San Francisco, that a lot of Starfleet officers put their kids into because they're away. But there's other kids from San Francisco that attend that have no affiliation, or their parents have no affiliation with Starfleet.
Yeah.
that's what I would assume. Absolutely.
And just because you can see San Francisco out the window doesn't mean that was a real window. In the future, that could be just a big screen, and you can always change the settings. Look, I was
This is
just
true.
at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, seeing stuff like this. So I'm just like, a big screen, and you just change, like, ooh, it looks like it's snowing outside, or ooh, now it looks like it's sunny and warm outside. That's the future. We're all going to have a holographic future. Like, we're all going to live in environments that we can change the view.
Cool.
Well, until they unveil the holodeck and the food replicator at CES, I'm only sort of interested.
I had there was one food replicator there making chicken fingers and fries. I did have that. Oh no, wait, it wasn't a food replicator. Okay, they just had chicken fingers and fries.
I love the idea of
I
a food
invented the food
replicator.
replicator, but it only makes chicken fingers and fries.
I'm on board with replicators first because that would end world hunger. So
Yes, that is absolutely why of all the, everyone asks about the big three, right? The holodeck, the transporter, or the replicator. I'm all about the replicator.
replicator
Exactly
first.
that reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
The holodeck's going to be fun, but everybody's going to be using that for sex. Everybody.
Yeah.
There's no way they're not having sex in there. They are all the time.
Yeah, that is the end of human civilization because we'll just be all too busy.
Mm-hmm. You can live out your fantasies in there. Oh, people are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't say it, but we know.
No.
let's save that.
DS9 got close.
Let's save that topic for another show.
I'll write that down as a potential topic.
I just
Sounds
know
like
that
fun.
those Trek Yard guys aren't talking about sex on the holodecks. I know they're not.
Well, see, we got one up on them then.
There you go.
But we can always suggest that they do. And then Captain Foley can be like, oh, yeah, no, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And I'll be like, I don't know what program you're running, but the one I have was really good.
Because it's like the Hollow Suites, the Quark runs on Deep Space Nine. People are using those for sex. They are.
That's why Patrick Stewart wanted to return to do Star Trek just one more time.
On that note.
Well, we're done. We've done a full hour.
I needed that.
did
Thank
it.
you guys. That was the best laugh I've had all week.
Oh, good.
Oh man. I guess we never really talked about how we end these things now, have we?
Well, no, because see, when we do Live from the Edge on Trek FM, Brandi has this whole thing she gets to read at the end, saying like, "Oh, other episodes and where posts and thank all our patrons and all that," and she does a different voice each time. But sorry, I'm just laughing at Lawrence Todd's message in the chat right now. I'm not going to read it out loud.
Oh, darn, I don't have it loaded because of my bandwidth issues. So I can only imagine.
Don't imagine. But
I'll have to watch the replay.
So Brandi, we'll close out. We'll ask you where people can find you online and what you have going on. And if you want to do that in a voice, you can do that.
I don't even know what voice I would do. Oh, I know. I'll do it like this because I just came back from Nashville, y'all. And Oh my Lord, I have never been so happy to get out of a place in my life because all of that country music just drove me up the wall. Anyway, so my name is Brandi, and you can find me on Twitter at Brandywine12. Now, Brandi is spelled with an I, and the 12 is a number, okay? And then you can also find me lurking in Babel Conference on Trek on the Trek FM listeners group on Facebook. And I do a couple of shows about Discovery now. I do one that is the live from the Edge with Bruce over there, right next door to me. See them? Yeah. So I do that. And when new episodes of Discovery are on, you're totally going to see that up again. And it'll be right after an episode has aired. So it'll be like the day after that. I hope they still keep it on Thursday, y'all, because that was really convenient for me because I could watch the episode a couple of times before we did the show the next day. But anyway, I'm getting off track. You can also find me on the Edge main show for a while because, I guess when live comes back, it's going to be kind of weird if I'm on both shows at the same time, but we're going to make it work because those other two guys that I'm with, they're in Australia, y'all, and it is hard to find a time to record.
I've wondered about that, yeah.
It is difficult because right now with no daylight savings time, it's an 18-hour time difference, y'all. Anyway, you can find me those places, and you can also find me with my husband, Dave. Oh, my Lord, that boy is the sweetest thing I have ever known. And we do a podcast called Dark Corner Podcast where we talk about stuff from a more gothy point of view. And you can find that at darkcornerpodcast.com.
By the way, where's Dave? I didn't see him in the chat. He's usually very talkative in the chat.
I don't know. He was there earlier, lurking. Maybe he's just lurking. Or maybe he started playing Fallout 4, and now between that and Fallout 76, I have lost my husband.
Oh, wait. He just replied.
I was going to say, we've lost out on popularity to Fallout 4. So, I mean, I guess there's some bars you just can't clear.
He's questioning that I call him a boy. Of course, you're a boy. I'm a girl.
Duh. Yeah.
Anyway.
Not just any girl. I think you're Suzanne Sugarbaker, but
no, actually, that actually is pretty accurate. Pretty accurate. Yeah.
Yes, Brandi is on the main show. Raptor Nation. What? Brandi's on the main show of The Edge now.
We just had our first episode come out. I can't remember how many days ago. Some days ago.
I think it was last weekend or something. I don't know.
I think it was Saturday, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking too. So what? Amy Nelson used to host that show, right?
Yep.
Now she's on this episode with you guys, is she?
Yes, she and Patrick are. They're both leaving. Yeah. And so we were all on the show together, 5 of us.
Well,
I don't recommend that as the general rule because that's a lot of people to have on one podcast.
I saw Amy last night, as you know, and she said that you guys were on for like 5 hours. The whole show isn't 5 hours, but you guys were talking for 5 hours, and it didn't help that she was she wasn't sober Amy.
I'm not going to touch that. It wasn't 5 hours. It was more like 3.5.
It just felt like 5.
It felt like 5.
Oh gosh. Okay, I'll say where I am. You can find me, and then we'll throw it to Dan to end this, since this is his channel. I want him to end this on his own channel. So I am on Twitter at Admiral_Rex. And you can find me doing the Star Wars Report podcast, and occasionally, and not on all the time, but I am on there. We just had a bunch of episodes reviewing The Rise of Skywalker, which I am on those. Of course, Literary Treks with Dan, which we mentioned earlier, Live on the Edge with Brandi. Gee, we've already talked about these. And I'm on with Dan on Positively Trek, a new podcast coming out this month.
I have to do this every time you say that. That's just
Positively Trek. Hey, and just again, that doesn't mean we're going to sugarcoat things. If we can criticize, but we're positive about it. We're just not going to be like, this has ruined my life. And,
this isn't Trek. This is not real Trek.
Nobody says that, right? No, we've never heard
Not
that.
not on
No.
Positively Trek, they don't.
No, they
Certainly
don't.
not.
They haven't said anything on that show.
Nobody's heard anything on there. Yeah,
Yet. And I'm positive about that.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. So, as for me, you can find me here on my channel, Kurtratz Productions, where I do videos mostly about Star Trek, sometimes about that other Star franchise as well. It's been a little slow lately. I've been crazy busy with a new job and I've been sick and it's just all been a big mess, but I'm back. I'm going to be back. I promise. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Kurtratz. That's Kertrats. For those of you who don't know, it's just Star Trek backwards. You can find me on Instagram at Kurtratz47. You can find me, as Bruce said, on Literary Treks with him, talking about Star Trek books and comics. And you can find me on Facebook.com/Kurtratz Productions and all those wonderful places. So awesome.
Awesome.
That's it.
That's it. All right. So thank you again to the chat. We loved having you.
Yeah.
Yes, Amy and Patrick moved on to a new podcast that they just started called All Good Things. Thank you for pointing that out, Brian. It's on the United Federation of Podcasts network. I got some inside scoop from Amy on some of that. There isn't much inside scoop. I'm just making it sound like there is. But yeah, check them out because they can talk all things Star Trek. And I guess that's it, right? Should we end this thing? We don't have like a tagline for. Well, I guess we can do what we do on the other show. Live, long, and prosper. Oh, look at this. Oh yeah, live, long, and prosper. I know it's live, but we say live when it's a live show. Live, long, and prosper. And you know that other line.
Keep calm and Picard on. I don't know.
I can show, if anybody's still watching, I can show a little tiny preview of something too.
Ooh, yeah, bring that in a little closer. I want everybody to look at the P. There's a plus sign within the P.
So things are afoot. You can see my cracked screen there. My cracked fingerprinted screen.
Maybe it should be Keep Calm and Jean-Luc on. I don't know. We'll workshop it.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Keep Calm and Keiko on.
No.
Okay.
Sorry, but no.
All right. Who knows? We might do another live thing sometime here in the near future. We'll keep watching here on this channel and Twitter and all that, and you'll find out. So thanks everyone.
Definitely.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.